The newlyweds are in bed on the wedding night, and just before the nuptials, the bride thinks she ought to say something as she was a bit of a lass in her day and worried she is a little big down below. She says, "Darling, I think you should know when I was younger I caught myself on a fence. Just in case you were wondering why I'm a little loose down below." He says, "That's fine, darling. We're married now in sickness and health." After the deed is done, the guy says, "Just exactly how far across the field were you before you realized you were caught?" The mother-in-law stopped by the recently married couple's house unexpectedly. She rang the doorbell and stepped inside, where she saw her daughter-in-law standing naked by the door. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm waiting for my husband to come home from work," the daughter-in-law answered. "But you're naked," the mother-in-law exclaimed. "This is my love dress," the daughter-in-law explained. "Love dress? But you're naked." "My husband loves me to wear this dress. It makes him happy. And it makes me happy. I would appreciate it if you would leave, because he will be home from work any minute." The mother-in-law, tired of all this romantic talk, left. On the way home, she thought about the love dress. When she got home, she got undressed, showered, put on her best perfume, and waited by the front door. Finally, her husband got home. He walked in and saw her standing naked by the door. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed. "This is my love dress," she replied. "Needs ironing," he said. A husband and wife were celebrating their 50th anniversary. That night, the wife approached her husband wearing the exact same negligee she had worn on their wedding night. She looked at her husband and said, "Honey, do you remember this?" He looked up at her and said, "Yes, dear, I do." "You wore that same negligee the night we were married," she said. "That's right. Do you remember what you said to me that night?" He nodded and said, "Yes, dear, I still remember." "Well, what was it?" she asked. He responded, "As I remember, I said, 'Oh, baby, I'm going to suck the life out of those big and screw your brains out.'" She giggled and said, "Yes, honey, that's exactly what you said." So now it's 50 years later, and I'm in the same negligee I wore that night. What do you have to say tonight? Again he looked up at her, and he replied, "Mission accomplished." A married couple in their early 60s was out celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary in a quiet, romantic little restaurant. Suddenly, a tiny yet beautiful fairy appeared on their table and said, "For being such an exemplary married couple, and for being faithful to each other all this time, I will grant you each a wish." "Ooh, I want to travel around the world with my darling husband," said the wife. The fairy moved her magic wand, and abracadabra! 2 tickets for the new QM, 2 luxury liner appeared in her hands. Now it was the husband's turn. He thought for a moment and said, "Well, this is all very romantic, but an opportunity like this only occurs once in a lifetime. So, I'm sorry, my love, but my wish is to have a wife 30 years younger than me." The wife and the fairy were deeply disappointed, but a wish is a wish. So the fairy made a circle with her magic wand, and abracadabra. The husband was 92 years old. P.S. Fairies are female. A young executive was leaving the office of a major corporation late one evening when he found the CEO himself standing in front of a shredder with a piece of paper in his hand. Eager to make a good impression, the young exec introduced himself and asked if he could be of any help. "Why, yes," said the CEO, holding up the piece of paper. "This is a very sensitive and important document, and my secretary has gone for the night. Can you make this thing work?" "Certainly," said the young executive, happy for a chance to help the boss. The young man turned the machine on, inserted the paper, and pressed the start button. "Excellent, excellent," said the CEO as his paper disappeared inside the machine. "I'll need 2 copies." Joe and Wanda lived in a cozy city apartment, and they found themselves in a bit of a bind one lazy Sunday afternoon. They wanted a little privacy, but their 10-year-old son was home, and the walls in their apartment were thin. After a bit of brainstorming, they came up with a plan. They decided to send their son out to the balcony with the mission of being their spy for the afternoon. His job? To report on all the exciting happenings in the neighborhood. They figured it would keep him occupied for a bit, and maybe even amuse him. Their son didn't hesitate, excited to be the neighborhood reporter. "There's a dog barking over at the Johnsons' house," he called out, looking down at the street. "Someone's washing their car," he added with a grin. After a few moments of silence, he piped up again. "The Millers are putting up a new fence," he observed. "Oh, and the Pattersons just brought home a pizza." Wanda and Joe exchanged a satisfied look as they began to carry out their plan. Then came a pause, followed by a very loud announcement. "Mom! Dad! You won't believe this. The Smith's kid is standing on the balcony with binoculars." Joe froze. "What? How'd you know that?" The boy replied matter-of-factly, "Because he's watching us." A blonde walks into a pharmacy and asks for bottom deodorant. The assistant, a little bemused, explains to the woman that they have never sold bottom deodorant. The blonde, unfazed, assures the lady behind the counter that she has been buying the stuff from here on a regular basis and would like some more. The shop assistant thinks for a minute, knowing full well that they don't stock or sell such an item, smiles at the blonde, and says, "One moment, please. I will get the pharmacist." The pharmacist looks at the blonde and asks, "Can I help you, miss?" "I would like to buy some bottom deodorant, please," says the blonde. "I'm sorry," says the pharmacist. "We don't have any." "But I always get it here," insists the blonde. "Do you have the container it comes in?" "Yes," says the blonde. "I will go and get it." She returns with the container and hands it to the pharmacist, who looks at it and says, "This is just a normal stick of underarm deodorant." The annoyed blonde snatches the container back, reads the label out loud and says, "To apply, push up bottom." Little Johnny had a real problem. He couldn't stop using bad language. His dad had finally had enough and went to see a therapist. With Christmas coming up, the therapist said, try asking Johnny what he wants from Santa, but if he swears, replace each gift with a pile of dog poop. That should send a message. So, 2 days before Christmas, his dad asked, "Johnny, what would you like Santa to bring you this year?" Johnny grinned. "I want a stinking teddy bear right by my bed when I wake up. Then I want to go downstairs and see a stinking train going around the stinking tree. And outside, I want a stinking bike leaning up against the stinking garage." Christmas morning came. Johnny woke up and found a pile of dog poop where his teddy bear should have been. Downstairs, another pile. Outside, yep, one more pile. Confused, he walked back inside. His dad asked, smiling, "So, Johnny, what did Santa bring you this year?" Johnny scratched his head and replied, "I think I got a dog, but I can't find him anywhere." A man is on his deathbed, and he asks his wife, "Martha, soon I will be gone forever, and there's something I have to know. In all these 50 years of marriage, have you ever been unfaithful to me?" Martha replied, "Well, Henry, I have to be honest with you. Yes, I've been unfaithful to you 3 times during these 50 years, but always for a good reason." Henry was obviously hurt by his wife's confession, but said, "I never suspected. Can you tell me what you mean by good reasons?" Martha said, "The first time was shortly after we were married, and we were about to lose our little house because we couldn't pay the mortgage. Do you remember that one evening I went to see the banker, and the next day he notified you that the loan would be extended?" Henry recalled the visit to the banker and said, "I can forgive you for that. You saved our home, but what about the second time? Martha asked, "And do you remember when you were so sick, but we didn't have the money to pay for the heart surgery you needed? Well, I went to see your doctor one night and, if you recall, he did the surgery at no charge." "I recall that," said Henry, "and you did it to save my life, so of course I can forgive you for that. Now tell me about the third time." "All right," Martha said. "Do you remember when you ran for president of your golf club and you needed 73 more votes?" One day, little Jenny walked into the kitchen and asked her mom, "Mommy, how old are you?" Her mom smiled and said, "Sweetie, you should never ask a woman her age." "Why not?" Jenny asked. "Because it's not polite. You'll understand when you're older." Jenny thought for a moment, then asked, "Mommy, how much do you weigh?" "Jenny," her mom said, "that's not a polite question either." Jenny was quiet for a second, then tried again. "Mommy, why did you and Daddy get a divorce?" With a sigh, her mom replied, "That's something I'll explain when you're older." Jenny wasn't satisfied. The next day, her friend at school gave her a tip. "Just check your mom's driver's license. It has all that info on it." So when Jenny got home, she peeked in her mom's purse, found the license, and studied it carefully. That evening, she marched back into the kitchen with a big grin. "Mommy, I know how old you are." "You're 36. Her mom looked surprised. "And I know how much you weigh, 135 pounds. "Jenny, where did you learn this?" her mom asked. Jenny just smirked and said, "And I know why you and Daddy got a divorce." Shocked, her mom gasped, "Why?" Jenny proudly announced, "Because you got an F in sex." A third-grade teacher asked her students to, one by one, stand in front of the class and tell what their daddies do. Little Mary went first. "My daddy is a doctor and he saves people's lives." "That's wonderful, Mary. Now how about you, Jane? What does your daddy do?" "My daddy is a lawyer and he puts bad people in jail," says Jane. "Very good, Jane." "Okay, Johnny, what does your daddy do?" "My daddy is dead," says Johnny. "Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Johnny," said the teacher, "what did he do before he died?" "He turned blue and on the carpet." When a woman's husband died, she learned he had left $30,000 to be used for an elaborate funeral. After everything was done at the funeral home and cemetery, she told her closest friend that there was absolutely nothing left of the money. "How can that be?" her friend asked. The widow replied, "Well, the funeral cost $6,500. I made a donation to the local church of $500, and I spent another $500 for the wake. The rest went toward the memorial stone." The memorial stone cost $22,500. Her friend said, "My God, how big is it?" "4.5 carats," replied the widow. A passionate duck hunter was searching for the perfect bird dog when he found one that could do the impossible: walk on water to retrieve ducks. Excited, he knew no one would believe him. So he invited his most skeptical friend, the guy who never seemed impressed by anything, to go hunting with him. As they waited, a flock of ducks flew by. Boom! A duck fell. The hunter's new dog leaped into action, literally walking on water to fetch it, never sinking, never getting wet. This happened all day. Every time a duck dropped, the dog strolled across the water like it was nothing. But his friend said nothing. On the drive home, the hunter finally asked, "So, did you notice anything special about my new dog?" The pessimist scoffed, "Yep, he can't swim." 3 men died in a car accident and arrived at the pearly gates, where they were greeted by Jesus himself. The Lord said, "I will ask each of you a simple question. If you tell the truth, I will welcome you into heaven. But if you lie, awaits." Turning to the first man, the Lord asked, "How many times did you cheat on your wife?" The man stood tall and replied, Lord, I was a faithful husband. I never cheated. Very good, the Lord said. For your loyalty, you shall have a grand mansion and a limousine for the transportation. Then the Lord asked the second man, And how about you? The second man hesitated before admitting, Lord, I cheated on my wife twice. The Lord nodded. You may enter, but for your unfaithfulness, you will receive a 4-bedroom house and a BMW. Finally, the Lord turned to the third man. And you? The man sighed and said, Lord, I cheated about 8 times. The Lord frowned slightly but said, I will still allow you in, but you will get a 1-room apartment and a Yugo for transportation. A few hours later, the second and third men found the first man sobbing. Why are you crying? They asked. You got the mansion and the limo. Through his tears, the first man choked out. I just saw my wife, and she was riding a skateboard.